Emma had always trusted Jake. They had been married for 6 years, building a life filled with love, routine, and the occasional argument that all couples had. She believed in the foundation they had created, one built on mutual respect, shared dreams, and the quiet, unspoken understanding that they were in this together. That's why, when her company sent her on a last-minute business trip, she didn't think twice about leaving Jake behind for the weekend. After all, they had spent time apart before, and it only made their reunion sweeter. The trip had gone well, but the meetings wrapped up earlier than expected. Instead of staying the extra night as planned, Emma decided to take an earlier flight home. She didn't tell Jake. She wanted to surprise him. Maybe they could order takeout from their favorite Thai place, open a bottle of wine, and just relax together. She missed him. Lately, life had been busy. Her work had been demanding, and Jake had seemed a little distant, but she chalked it up to stress. They just needed some time to reconnect. She landed in the early evening, excited as she drove through familiar streets toward their house. The streetlights flickered on as dusk settled, casting long shadows over the quiet neighborhood. Their house was warmly lit from the inside, a comforting sight that made her smile. Home. Emma parked the car in the driveway, grabbed her suitcase, and walked up to the front door. She reached for the handle, but something stopped her. Through the large window in the living room, she saw movement in the kitchen. Jake was there, but he wasn't alone. Her heart skipped a beat. It took her brain a second to register who was with him. The familiar blonde hair. The way she leaned against the kitchen counter. The soft, flirtatious laugh that Emma had heard countless times before. Lily, Emma's younger sister. The logical part of her mind tried to catch up with what she was seeing. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Lily had just stopped by, and they were chatting like family did. But then she saw it. Jake reached out, brushing Lily's hair back in a way that was too intimate, too familiar. And then, before Emma could process what was happening, he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't a friendly peck on the cheek. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, slow, and lingering. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The suitcase slipped from her grip, landing with a dull thud on the porch. The sound shattered the moment inside. Jake and Lily jerked apart, eyes wide with shock. Lily's hand flew to her mouth, as if trying to erase the evidence of what had just happened. Jake turned toward the door, his face paling as he locked eyes with Emma through the glass. For a moment, none of them moved. The world seemed to stop, the silence deafening. Emma's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. Her body felt frozen, but her mind was racing. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. Jake took a hesitant step toward the door. Emma. But she didn't let him finish. She pushed the door open so forcefully that it slammed against the wall. The sound startled them both, but Emma barely noticed. Her entire focus was on the two people standing before her. The two people she trusted most in the world. What the hell is going on? Her voice was sharp, shaking with a mix of fury and disbelief. Lily opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked guilty, like a child caught stealing candy. Jake ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly, as if trying to find the right thing to say. Emma didn't want an explanation. She wanted to rewind time, to walk into her house and find Jake waiting for her with a smile, not standing there like a deer in headlights with her sister. Lily finally found her voice, though it was barely above a whisper. Emma, don't. Emma's voice cut through the air like a blade. She turned to Jake, her stomach twisting painfully. How long? Jake hesitated. That hesitation alone was an answer. If it had been nothing, a mistake, a moment of weakness, he would have blurted it out immediately. But he didn't. Emma's chest tightened. How long? Jake exhaled, looking away. It's not what you think. Emma let out a bitter laugh, but it came out more like a strangled sob. Not what I think. I just caught you kissing my sister in our kitchen. So please, Jake, tell me, what exactly am I supposed to think? Lily stepped forward. Emma, please let me explain. Emma turned on her. You. My own sister. How could you? Lily flinched as if Emma had slapped her. Tears welled in her eyes, but Emma had no sympathy to spare. Jake tried again. It was a mistake. Emma's blood boiled. A mistake? A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is sending a text to the wrong person. This, she gestured between them, her voice rising. This is not a mistake. This is a betrayal. Neither of them spoke. The weight of her words hung in the air. Emma shook her head, the reality of it sinking in deeper, poisoning everything she thought she knew. The man she had built a life with, the sister she had grown up protecting. And now, they stood before her, exposed in their betrayal, looking at her like she was the one breaking apart their world. Tears burned at the back of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of them. She took a deep, shuddering breath and straightened her shoulders. I can't do this right now. Jake stepped forward. Emma, please. She held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. She turned on her heel and walked out the door, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. The cool night air hit her like a slap, but she barely felt it. She needed to get out, to breathe, to be anywhere but here. As she got into her car and pulled away, she saw them through the rearview mirror. Jake standing there, his hands on his hips, his head down. Lily wiping her eyes, looking devastated. They were shocked, but not nearly as shocked as they would be when Emma found out the whole truth. Emma didn't sleep that night. She had driven aimlessly for hours after leaving the house, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her mind replayed the scene over and over. The look on Jake's face, the guilt in Lily's eyes, the way they had both stumbled over their words as if trying to find a way to make it all disappear. But it had happened. By the time she finally pulled into a motel parking lot on the edge of town, exhaustion weighed on her like a heavy blanket. She checked in without thinking, her movements robotic, and collapsed onto the stiff motel bed. But sleep never came. She stared at the ceiling, the events of the evening looping in her head like a broken film reel. Jake, her husband, Lily, her sister, together. It didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. When the sun finally rose, Emma knew she couldn't hide from it any longer. She needed answers. She reached for her phone, her stomach twisting as she saw the missed calls and unread messages from Jake. He had called 6 times. The first message was short. Jake, Emma, please come home. We need to talk. The next few were more desperate. Jake, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. Please just talk to me. Jake, I love you. Please don't shut me out like this. Emma scoffed. I love you? Had he thought about that when he kissed her sister? She ignored him and scrolled down. Lily had messaged her too. Lily, Emma, please. Let me explain. Lily, I feel sick. I hate myself for this. Please, can we meet? Just you and me? Emma hesitated. She had no desire to see either of them. But if she was going to get the truth, she had to start somewhere. And as much as she hated to admit it, she needed to hear Lily's side of the story. She texted back. Emma, fine. Cafe on 8th. 1 hour. Lily responded immediately. Lily, thank you. Emma didn't reply. The cafe was nearly empty when Emma arrived. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, but it did nothing to soothe her. She spotted Lily in the corner, nervously stirring a cup of tea. Emma approached the table, pulling out a chair with more force than necessary. Lily jumped at the noise. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Lily looked awful. Her normally perfect hair was tied back in a messy bun. Her eyes were swollen, and she hadn't bothered with makeup. She looked like she had spent the night crying. Good. Emma folded her arms. Start talking. Lily swallowed hard. She hesitated, looking down at her hands. I don't even know where to begin. Emma's jaw tightened. How about with why you were kissing my husband in my house? Lily winced. It wasn't supposed to happen. Emma let out a bitter laugh. Oh well, that makes me feel better. Lily shook her head. Emma, I swear, I never meant to hurt you. I never. She broke off, taking a shaky breath. It got out of hand. Emma narrowed her eyes. How long? Lily's hands trembled around her cup. It wasn't. She took another breath. It's not what you think. It's not some affair. I swear. Emma slammed her palm onto the table, making Lily jump. Then what is it, Lily? Because I saw what I saw. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, but Emma didn't care. Not yet. Lily exhaled. It started months ago. Around your birthday. Emma's stomach turned. Lily continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake reached out to me. He wanted help planning something special for you. He said you'd been so stressed with work, and he wanted to do something nice. So we started texting. At first it was just about ideas, restaurants, gifts, that kind of thing. Emma clenched her fists. And then, Lily hesitated. Then he started opening up to me. A chill ran down Emma's spine. About what? Lily looked down. About you. Emma's chest tightened. Lily kept going. He said he felt like you weren't as close anymore. That you were always busy. That when you were home, you were exhausted and barely talked to him. Emma felt her nails dig into her palms. So what? That gave you the right to step in? Lily shook her head quickly. No. I swear I never intended for anything to happen. She sighed. He sounded lonely, Emma. And I felt, I don't know, flattered, I guess. Emma stared at her, a bitter taste in her mouth. Flattered. Lily wiped at her eyes. I was an idiot. I told myself it was harmless. That we were just talking. That I was just being a good sister-in-law, helping him through a rough patch. Emma scoffed. Helping him how, exactly? Lily winced. I didn't see it for what it was at first. I thought we were just bonding. But then she swallowed hard. He started saying things. About how easy I was to talk to. About how he felt like I understood him in a way that you didn't anymore. And Emma's stomach churned. I let it happen, Lily admitted. I liked the attention. It was stupid and selfish, and I wish I could take it back. Emma's head spun. Lily's voice cracked. But it wasn't some long affair, Emma. It was just, she exhaled shakily. Last night was the first time anything physical ever happened. And the second it did, I knew I had made the biggest mistake of my life. Emma closed her eyes for a brief moment, trying to process it all. So what now? She asked, her voice flat. Lily wiped at her face. I don't know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. Emma didn't argue. Lily looked down at the table. But I swear, Emma, I was never trying to take him from you. Emma's throat felt tight. Maybe not, she said quietly. But you betrayed me anyway. Lily flinched. A heavy silence stretched between them. Emma stood. I need time. Lily nodded, her eyes red. I understand. Emma hesitated, then turned and walked away, leaving Lily alone at the table. Her sister had given her some answers. But she wasn't sure if she felt any better. Emma left the cafe feeling hollow. The conversation with Lily had given her answers, but they didn't bring her any peace. If anything, they only made her feel worse. She had spent the past 6 years believing in her marriage, trusting Jake, and assuming that whatever distance had formed between them was just a rough patch they would work through. But now, she saw it differently. Jake hadn't been waiting to fix things. He had been confiding in her sister instead. The betrayal was a slow burn in her chest, simmering just below the surface. As she walked through the quiet streets, her mind replayed every moment of the past few months. Every night Jake had seemed distracted. Every time he had glanced at his phone with a look of hesitation before setting it down. Every time she had convinced herself that she was just imagining things. She wasn't imagining them. She had been blind. By the time she reached her car, her emotions had settled into something sharp and steady. She couldn't just let this go. She needed to know everything. If she was going to decide what to do next, she needed the full truth, not just the pieces Lily was willing to admit. Emma wasn't naive. People lied. People softened the truth to protect themselves. And if Lily had already admitted to some of it, that meant there was probably more she wasn't saying. Emma got into her car and, without thinking twice, made a decision. She was going to find out the truth no matter what it took. That afternoon, Emma called an old college friend, Sarah. Sarah had worked as a private investigator for years, mostly handling infidelity cases. Emma had always thought that was depressing work, but now she saw the value in it. When Sarah picked up, Emma didn't bother with small talk. I need your help. There was a pause on the other end. Then Sarah's voice came through, careful but firm. Emma, what's going on? Emma exhaled, gripping the steering wheel. Jake. I need to know if there's more. Sarah didn't ask unnecessary questions. Meet me in an hour. Sarah's office was small but efficient, just like she was. Emma sat across from her, hands clasped tightly together, while Sarah took notes. So Sarah said, you caught him kissing your sister. Emma nodded stiffly. Lily swears it was the first time anything physical happened. But she also admitted that they had been talking for months. That he confided in her about our marriage. Sarah's expression didn't change, but Emma saw the doubt in her eyes. That's convenient. Emma let out a humorless laugh. Exactly. Sarah set her pen down. Okay. If you really want to do this, I can pull his phone records, check any secret credit card transactions, and see if there are any patterns in his location history. If there's more, we'll find it. Emma nodded. Do it. Sarah gave her a long look. If I find something, are you ready for it? Emma swallowed hard. I have to be. The next few days were agonizing. Emma went back to work, trying to act normal, but every time her phone buzzed, her heart raced. She ignored Jake's calls, ignored the texts that ranged from apologetic to desperate. She had nothing to say to him. Not yet. Then on the third day, Sarah called. Meet me at my office. Now. Emma's stomach clenched. She drove over in silence, hands tight on the wheel. When she arrived, Sarah didn't waste time. You were right, Sarah said, pushing a file toward her. There's more. Emma's hands trembled as she opened the file. Inside were phone records, texts, and financial transactions. But the worst part was the timeline. Jake and Lily hadn't just been talking for a few months. It had been almost a year. Emma's stomach turned as she scanned the messages, some innocent at first, then growing more intimate. Jake venting about their marriage. Lily comforting him. Then little comments that made Emma's skin crawl. Jake, I feel like I can really talk to you, Lily. Lily, you always can. Jake, sometimes, I feel like I married the wrong sister. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She kept reading. There were dinner reservations she hadn't known about. Hotel receipts. Nothing explicit. Nothing that proved they had slept together. But enough to tell her that they had been meeting in secret for months. Lily had lied. This wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't just one kiss. This was a pattern. Emma's hands clenched into fists. Sarah's voice was calm but firm. I can keep digging, but I think this is enough. It was enough. It was more than enough. Emma had spent the past few days trying to figure out if she could forgive Jake, trying to decide if Lily's tears were real. But now she didn't have to wonder. They had both betrayed her for months. She wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to scream. She was going to end this. For good. Emma sat in her car outside their house, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had spent the last few hours staring at the evidence Sarah had given her, letting the weight of it settle over her like a suffocating blanket. The betrayal wasn't just a moment of weakness. It wasn't just one bad decision. It had been a choice over and over again. Jake and Lily had lied to her for nearly a year, and now she had to decide what to do with that truth. For a brief moment, she considered leaving without confronting him, just packing a bag, filing for divorce, and letting him figure it out when he got the papers. It would be easier, cleaner. But deep down she knew she couldn't. She needed to look him in the eye, needed to see him squirm under the weight of what he had done. She needed closure. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed the file and stepped out of the car. Jake was sitting on the couch when she walked in, his head in his hands. He looked up the moment he heard the door close, his face lighting up with relief. For just a second. Then he saw her expression, the file in her hands, and the color drained from his face. Emma, he started, standing quickly. I've been going crazy. Please, let's talk. She dropped the file onto the coffee table between them. Talk. Sure, let's talk. Why don't you explain this? Jake hesitated, his eyes flicking down to the papers. He swallowed hard but didn't move to touch them. Emma crossed her arms. Lily told me it was just one kiss. That it was a mistake. She let out a bitter laugh. Guess what? She lied. Just like you did. Jake's shoulders slumped. Emma, I have everything, she cut him off. Your text messages. Your secret meetings. The hotel charges. She took a step closer, her voice cold. You've been cheating on me with my own sister for almost a year, Jake. And the whole time you let me think I was the problem. His face twisted in guilt. I never wanted to hurt you. Emma's anger flared. But you did. Jake flinched but didn't look away. I was lost, Emma. You were always working, always tired. I felt like we weren't even in the same marriage anymore. And Lily, she was there. She listened. I never planned for this to happen. Emma's voice was eerily calm. So it just happened. You tripped and fell into an emotional affair? Into hotel rooms? Into telling my sister that you should have married her instead? Jake's mouth opened then closed. He had no defense. Emma exhaled slowly, trying to control the storm of emotions inside her. I spent so much time thinking something was wrong with me, wondering if I wasn't enough. But it was you, Jake. You made a choice. Over and over again. Jake ran a hand through his hair, his voice cracking. I still love you, Emma. She shook her head. No, you don't. If you did, you wouldn't have done this. He took a desperate step toward her. Please don't throw everything away. We can fix this. Emma let out a hollow laugh. We didn't break this, Jake. You did. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the moment pressed between them like a wall that couldn't be climbed. Finally, Emma reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. She tossed it onto the coffee table. Jake's eyes darted to it. What is this? Divorce papers, she said simply. I already signed them. All that's left is your signature. His face crumpled. Emma. She turned away. I'll come back for my things tomorrow. Jake's voice broke. I don't want to lose you. Emma paused at the door, gripping the handle tightly. You already did. And with that she walked out. Emma didn't go to a hotel this time. She drove straight to Sarah's place, where her friend was waiting with a bottle of wine and an understanding look. They didn't talk much that night. Emma just let herself feel the heartbreak, the anger, the relief. Because that's what it was in the end. Relief. She wasn't trapped anymore. She wasn't waiting for an explanation that would never be good enough. She was free. Over the next few weeks, she moved into a new apartment. She cut off contact with both Jake and Lily. The betrayal was still raw, but she refused to let it define her. One day while unpacking, she found an old photo of her and Lily as kids. They were laughing, arms wrapped around each other. For the first time since it happened, Emma cried. Not for Jake. Not even for Lily. She cried for the sister she had lost. Because even if Lily called, even if she apologized 1,000 times, Emma knew that some things could never be fixed. Some betrayals cut too deep. And some doors once closed should never be opened again.